Hey guys, this is honestly the first time I've done a more formal introduction to my channel. And to say the least, hi! This is the second part to being a Goob, which you should check out and see if you like the compilation. In the second part, I'll be explaining the technicalities and what you can do while playing Goob, but keep in mind this is only my opinion based off of research, and there is no such thing as a professional DANDYS world player. So take what I say with a grain of salt, please. Now that I've gotten this out of the way, we should probably get straight into the video. So, without further ado, let us look into an overview. Goob is a playable toon in the Roblox game DANDYS World. I assume that you know that already, given you are watching this video. However, there is a lot to take in based off of his ability and stats, which makes him a pretty popular pick for any good run. For his stats, he has a 3 out of 5 on skill check, a 4 out of 5 on movement speed, a 4 out of 5 on stamina, a 2 out of 5 on stealth, and a 2 out of 5 on extraction speed. With these stats, it is noticeable that he mainly is meant for speed, which is what most people utilize him for. However, keep in mind that although his extraction speed and stealth is quite bad, his skill check is enough to make him somewhat well-rounded. Given he isn't a main toon, he has 3 health and a singular active ability labeled Hug. This ability allows him to pull another toon toward him as long as they are in his line of sight and not super far away. This ability can be great for supporting toons with bad stealth or low movement speed, such as V, Roger, Shrimpo, Brightney, and more. The ability is also very good for helping toons to get into the elevator after all the machines are done. As for the requirements, you need 1,750 Ichor and to complete 3 mastery quests on Scraps. And in order to get Scraps to meet the second requirement, you need 1,500 Ichor and 50% research on Twisted Goob. I won't go through the literal process of obtaining him, but I will say using Roger for the research to get Scraps, and prioritizing Scraps' 2nd, 4th, and 5th mastery quests can make obtaining Goob much easier. Now that you have a rough overview of what he is, what can you do with this? Just a warning, be prepared for a lot of terms to get thrown around and dissected. You might need to pause or look back to certain points if you miss anything. Also, correct me if I mislabel anything, please. I'd very much appreciate the insight. Given Goob's exceptional movement speed and stamina, a lot of teams prefer Goob to distract, or kite. For context, kiting and distracting is when one or more toons take the attention of the Twisteds for the duration of a floor. As previously stated, his stats make this incredibly viable for him to do over other toons, especially because he also has a 2 on stealth, which is pretty low. First thing to acknowledge if you want to distract as Goob is the trinkets that you use. If you go into a match using Goob without any good trinkets, he'll be hindered more than he'll be helped. A go-to trinket for distracting as Goob is the Dog Plush, given it raises your walk speed by 10%, usually making you able to use stamina much less while distracting. Other trinkets that work very well are the Pink Bow, which increases your run speed by 7.5%, and Speedy Shoes, which gives you a 5% boost on general movement. If you equip these trinkets, it usually enables you to walk as fast as the majority of the common Twisteds, and many of the uncommon and rare Twisteds, with the notable exceptions of Shrimpo and Finn, who are much slower. Other trinkets that can be utilized, despite the fandom wiki not listing them, are the Ribbon Spool, which gives you a 10% bonus of movement speed on odd floors, which is great if you don't want to always distract or have another distractor to substitute while you're slower. The Friendship Bracelet, which gives you an additional 5 stamina for every other alive player in your run, which can work wonders for those who with subpar stamina management. The Bone, which gives you a 25% movement speed boost for 4 seconds upon picking up an item, which is a lot more niche but can see rare uses. And lastly, the Vanity Mirror, which increases run speed by 30% during panic mode, which enables you to distract for longer after all the machines are done. Of course, you can really use any trinkets, but your team might not trust your role if you bring trinkets like Brick and Water Cooler, which make you noticeably slower. Hey, Future V editing this, there's another trinket that got added recently, that being the Clown Horn. It does the same thing as the Ribbon Spool, except on odd-numbered floors. so pairing it up with the ribbon spool or dog plush is also very good. Now that we have trinkets out the way, we can move on to how to actually distract. Believe it or not, it is very simple, with only a few exceptions. You just find an island or a group of furniture you can run around, and run around it at a decent pace to keep the Twisted's attention without them catching you. Something to keep in mind is that it's not advised to distract around machines or places with a lot of traffic between players. Try to go somewhere secluded and without any machines. Although these areas vary, one place I like to always check is the opposite side of the map, which has an elevator door with the caution tape. It usually has islands to go around, and there's usually never machines there. One thing to know is the fact that for Goob's case, you don't need an island to distract. You can actually just use a method called sprint tapping, which is self-explanatory, to loop around a secluded area. One thing to be acknowledged though, is that there will always be some Twisteds who don't follow any of these rules, in which I will list with methods of trying to distract, although it's a little more difficult. Firstly, Twisted Goob and Scraps are both Twisteds that have a ranged attack, which tends to be very dangerous. The easiest way to counteract this is to watch them closely and distract tightly around an island. If you see them doing their ability, you can use their sprint to dash around a corner, disabling their attack. Twisted Gigi, who is my least favorite Twisted, has a ranged attack just like Scraps and Goob, but their attack steals your items in a left to right order. And she is much faster than most Toons, although it's still viable to use the same strategy as Goobs and Scraps. I do advise you use more stamina in some circumstances, however, it is best just to not distract her, mainly if you have items like medkits and band-aids, which can be crucial to persisting throughout a run. Another one is Twisted Sprout, who although being very slow, can create tendrils which block a path. It is best to distract them in the open to give yourself more room to deal with them. It can be a bit more difficult if you have a small map or a map with machines scattered throughout, so be careful and mindful if you run into them. Another one is Twisted V, which lowers your movement speed temporarily and distracts you with pop-up ads. For her case, try to only use your stamina when she uses her ability, mainly to not let her get close enough to hit you, and to maintain a fair distance. Lastly, there's Twisted Pebble, which is the worst by far, and that issue is their speed. Twisted Pebble is the fastest Twisted in the game, and distracting him requires that you use much more stamina than you can expend. I simply suggest you try to break his attention away occasionally to recover stamina, given his attention span is modest. It's also viable to try to hug corners of islands, as he tends to get caught on obstacles with his large size, which can buy you more time. Of course, there are more minor exceptions, such as Glisten, who is primarily a threat during the panic timer, Toodles and Shelly, who are very fast and require more stamina usage, and Astro, who inflicts the tire debuff, which lowers stamina regeneration. For the final notes on distracting, it has to pertain to distractors etiquette, or in other words, the way that the members of a team should behave, given they have a distractor, and the way that a distractor should behave themselves. First things first, nobody should be griefing or sabotaging each other, which is obvious. This tends to be a habit of some Goob players who tend to pull the player into danger if they don't like them. If you feel called out by that previous statement, please stop doing that. The starters deserve better. Secondly, heals should go primarily to the distractor unless a Cosmo is present. If a Cosmo is present, then give the heals to them. A lot of people tend to say Sprout should get healed second before the distractors, but if Sprout isn't distracting, I don't really see the point other than keeping your healer alive. You will be the most vulnerable to taking damage by Twisteds by far, so address when you need to be healed. Thirdly, everyone has to be mindful of stealth. It can be very problematic for a Brightney or Shrimpo to blitz their way into a place that you're distracting. Same goes for you distracting around them in an unneeded manner. As I said before, find a secluded spot, and if you're playing a Toon with bad stealth, stay away from that spot. Lastly, primarily for your teammates, do not let a non-distractor substitute for you. Although this is entirely based on my personal opinion, no extractors or supporters should take your place, even if needed. It's better to explicitly figure out who else is viable to distract, and have them as a secondary distractor, who in other words, makes up for what the main distractor can't do. If you don't have any people willing to fit that role, try to figure out who can, like Sprout and Tisha, who are exceptional despite their expertise in other areas. Now that you've made it this far, which I am thankful for, I'd like to make a few important statements to conclude. Firstly, there will eventually be a part 3, which discusses what else you can do with Goob, such as extracting or supporting. And I will be making several counterparts to this series based off of the other tunes that are in the game. But doing this takes a lot of writing and work and editing. I mean, I even make the music in these videos. So if you enjoy, please like and subscribe to push me through the algorithm. It's a small payment and I deeply appreciate it oh so much. And give any feedback you like in the comments too. Just make sure to keep it civil and lighthearted. To say the least, I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.
Humpty Dumpty Dum Dum Dum. What? Oh. Where am I? Why am I in a ship? Oh!
Bitch, you are gonna get in this car or I'm popping between your eyes.